So the Ming emperor needed a very large government structure, a lot of people working for him to make sure that everybody followed these laws and they maintained their place in society. So we have the creation of this huge bureaucracy, and two pieces of this that show you just how regimented this was were the household register and then the register of all the land, known as the fish scale register. So the household register was a written report of everything you owned. So what would happen is the government official would come to your house every couple years and record in detail all the information about your family. So who was the head of the household, what his occupation was, what agricultural produce you were growing, how much land you had, how many chickens you had, right? All your household possessions, all that would be recorded into the household register. So with the household register, it was also known as the yellow register because 4 copies were made and the central government got the yellow copy of those 4 copies. The government also registered all the land and redistributed it. So the land was supposed to be distributed evenly, like overlapping fish scales, and that's why we get the name the Fish Scale Registry. It did have this very complicated system where it was supposed to give you more land if your land was less productive, but it was very hard to work out in reality, and most people got the same size plots, even if your plot didn't produce as much. And then over time, what ends up happening is we've got more and more people with population growth who are trying to farm this same little plot of land, and it's over-tilled and it becomes less and less productive. So at the beginning, we've got great population growth and general prosperity, but things are going to get harder for the farmers, especially as we start to approach the 1600s. So there's one way for families to try and improve their situations under the early Ming emperors, and that's through sponsoring one of their sons, and it was the sons, to go into government service, to become part of this bureaucracy. And how they did this is you would send your son off to school, and he would study for years in order to take a Confucianist exam. So what you did in these Confucian schools is you learned Confucian ideology, theology, which was supposed to teach you how to be a benevolent leader. So it was supposed to teach you how to do what was good for the people. And it was also, by using this exam system, supposed to pick out the people who were the smartest, who could study and then pass a very detailed exam. And apparently the pass rates were something in the order of 10%. So almost everybody failed, and it was a very small minority who actually passed, and they were supposed to be the smartest, the most caring, the most benevolent leaders who would work in the interest of the people. And at first, under our Ming emperors, we've got our Emperor Hongwu, especially thinking about his background and how he brings it up again and again and again, was really trying to limit the power of traditional landlords. He tried to redistribute the land and make it so that all peasants could survive. So the next slide shows you a painting that's currently being shown at the Met. And the point here is that this was the literati lifestyle. These were the scholar gentry. Literati means scholar gentry, if we're translating it roughly. And these are the people who passed the Confucian exam system, and they were able to go into government service. And working as a government official meant that you got a comfortable salary, that once you retired, you continued to get a stipend. And so this could uplift your entire family, especially if you were from the rural poor. This was your only way to improve your situation, theoretically. So here you have a picture of students waiting to get the results from the Confucian exams, and it was a very tense period. Just think your whole family, if you were one of these young men, had invested years and all their savings, likely, in having you pass this Confucian exam. So if you flip to the next slide, you'll see that especially in the first century and a half of the Ming period, we have years of rural stability, we have rapid population growth with the population doubling from 1400 to 1600, and we've got an economy that China's doing quite well in because China has things that the rest of the world wants. So first we even see the Silk Roads, if you're familiar with them. Chinese silk is transported from the east through Constantinople and then traded to the west. We've also got a desire for other Chinese goods, especially porcelain. So this gives China a favorable balance of trade with the West. China also, if you'll remember back to the videos about Yonhe, is in its stage of exploration and the Great Treasure Fleet. So with this show of naval dominance, it's able to collect tribute from its vassal states. And all of this means that generally China is prosperous and we have money for Chinese art and Chinese innovation. We have good internal markets and we have a general supply of enough staple crops, grains, cotton, tea, rice to feed the population and meet their basic needs. The next slide reminds you of all the wealth that China had that the rest of the world wanted. And what you're going to end up having, and you've seen this already in the reading, is that a lot of the silver from the Americas ends up in this period in the 1500s in China. We have also Ming art, Ming paintings, Ming ceramics, Ming porcelain found throughout the world. We have merchants selling it in Lima to Spanish landowners in the New World. We have it being sold along the Swahili coast of East Africa. We have it, of course, being treasured in Europe. So Chinese goods were reflective of Chinese wealth. However, you'll see that several things begin to undermine the prosperity and the power of the Ming dynasty. In general, people didn't accept their social and physical immobility. So there were those very strict constraints placed on them by the Ming Code, and we had peasants starting to move to urban areas. We had merchants who were wealthier than they were supposed to be because they were supposed to be at the lower rungs of the social hierarchy. And so this supposed very strict system that was in place was being corrupted, and people were just ignoring it or going around it. Now, trade was supposed to be very strictly government controlled, but some merchants were trading illegally, and then even the government hadn't expected merchants to get as wealthy from trade with the West as they were, so we've got the rise of the merchant class. We also have the corruption of the Confucian system. The Confucian system was supposed to pick the smartest and the brightest and the people who cared most about the masses for government service. But what ends up happening is you've got a class of literati that emerges. Essentially, those scholar gentry who had passed the Confucian exam system are now wealthier, and they're able to pay for more of their sons to go through the Confucian education system and pass exams and then go into government service. So you've got this development of a whole class of literati, these scholar gentry. Another thing that happens is that some of them do bribe officials, so maybe their son doesn't pass, but they've got money, so they'll pay so their sons can go into government service. Another thing, too, is that some of the later Ming emperors start demanding that people pay their taxes in silver. And if you'll remember, one of the things that the Emperor Hongwu had said is that people could pay their taxes in agricultural produce. Well, this is completely overturned by the later emperors who demand silver, and problems with inflation due to the influx of silver from Europe make it harder for the common man to pay his taxes. We've got a series of natural disasters. The best known one is an earthquake in 1556 that killed an estimated 830,000 people. We also had war with Korea, so some of the tributary states tried to declare their independence or stop paying tribute, and the one with Korea was around 1600. So with these natural disasters and problems, people charge that the government wasn't responsive enough to their needs, and we have officials who really weren't all that interested in following the benevolent Confucian system. And at the same time, people saw that these scholar gentry and even the emperor had all this leisure time. They had time for poetry and they had time for art, and the working men and women or farmers, they resented the excess, the wealth of the elite, the scholar gentry, the merchants who were richer than they were supposed to be, and the emperor. So we have issues undermining our Ming dynasty from within. It's losing a lot of support. A lot of the original ideas of Hongwu had been corrupted. Our period of general prosperity is being turned around. Remember, over time, our farmers who were dependent on these small plots of land, they're having larger families, more people are surviving to adulthood, and they can't support these large expanding families. So with problems from within, that gives impetus to Narachi in 1644 from Manchuria to come in and overthrow the Ming dynasty to establish a new dynasty, the Qings. And so what you want to make sure you understand on Ming China is just how wealthy the early Ming state was, how Ming trade is flourishing, how China has wealth and products that the rest of the world is very interested in, and how over time the system becomes corrupted and contributes to the downfall of the Ming emperors.